Hi there, hello and welcome. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor and you're watching Money Control. Now, if you're watching us, this live stream, you certainly are a social media sort of kid of sorts has already hit you. You are a social media animal. You consume news on your various social media platforms as well. And if you are on one of them, the one thing that you just cannot miss these days are influencers, constant updates on some product or the other. Now, we live in times where if you ask somebody, a 20-year-old or a teenager out on the street, what do you want to be? He'll probably end up telling you he wants to be a YouTuber or a content creator. So, in times like these, a new twist in the tail to the influencer party has come in. And this is a new tax that the government has decided to levy. It's been in the works for a while, came out in the last budget, but now a 10% TDS, that's tax deducted at source, will be charged for any sort of free gifts that are given out by brands to these social media influencers. Now, right at the outset, let's just clear out a couple of things over here. What exactly does this mean, and how will this impact your and my life, impact the life of influencers in the entire influencer economy on the whole? Couple of facts, okay, straight up. One, this 10% TDS will be deducted at source from the companies. Will also have a implication on the influencer. We'll talk about that on the program. But this has to be if the product is A, not returned, and B, above 20,000 rupees in a year or so, right? So those are some basics here. Basically, to make you understand that a little sort of cake that is sent out to try out does not fall in this category, or a lipstick that you'll see being tried out by your favorite social media influencer does not necessarily come under this bracket. But it's a tax at the end of the day, and who likes to be taxed, clearly? But on the program today, we'll be talking to influencers, we'll be talking to brands, and we'll be talking to a tax expert to get a full 360 view on how this is going to impact the entire economy, which is going in billions at the moment. All right, on that note, let me introduce my panel. I have with me today Arati Mittal. No introduction required for all these influencers, actually, but let me just say this anyways. Arati is a comedian and influencer. Thank you so much for joining us today, Aditi. Also with us is Vasudha Rai. She is a beauty influencer. The sunscreen I'm wearing today is because she recommended it some time ago on Instagram, and I was like, oh God, I gotta try it if Vasudha is saying it. Also with us is Natasha Patel. Natasha is also a beauty and lifestyle influencer. You will see her, stuffing her face with something really nice to eat or somewhere nice to travel or trying out these new products. So she's pretty much the one telling you what to buy all the time. And also with us today is Srinik Gandhi. He's the CEO and co-founder for White River Media. He's the person who's always behind the scene, but perhaps coming out and talking about the entire economy for the first time on camera. And he is sort of a bridge between what influencers do and what brands do, and he brings them together. So how his life is going to get impacted when we discuss the entire ecosystem is going to be key. Another key element here is Amlan Pakti. He's the marketing head and digital e-commerce for Cavan Care. Also worked earlier with lots of digital and sort of electronics as well, has great experience there. And electronics is going to be another very key impacted area here. Again, the price range 20K plus is going to see a hit. So that's going to be key to understand. And then finally, we have Sachit Jolly with us. He's the man who's going to be answering all the very tough questions. And Sachit, let me tell you, no pressure, but we spoke with so many influencers before actually doing this program, and all of them said one thing: we don't understand what's happening. There is so much ambiguity around how exactly this entire system is going to work. So you are going to be the one person answering all their questions, I hope, tonight. All right. But first up, let me begin with Aditi. Aditi, just want to understand your view. And I know a lot of people have said, oh, another tax, why is the government doing this 10% TDS? Now, how are you going to account for all of it? But I know that on the flip side, the conversation has been about recognition that the entire influencer community gets with this tax. But let me stop there, and I want to hear your views on how you see this coming in.
Gee, so the moment a tax is levied on something, suddenly your parents think it's a legitimate thing, right? And so there's a bunch of influencers that out there that their parents are going to be like, "Wow, what you do is real. That's crazy."
Finally. Yeah.
Secondly, I think that we've had a glut of this will really affect the thumbnail industry of vlogs. I think because we have all these thumbnails which are constantly like, oh, went for my dream vacation for only 5 lakh rupees, and oh, got my dream house at 23 only for 20 lakh rupees. I think a lot less people are going to be declaring that on their thumbnails now, which means they're going to have to look for different ways to hook readers and watchers with content. I think those are the two major influences that I think this tax could have.
Right. You're right in a way. Travel is going to see, we were looking at in our research which industries are perhaps going to see maximum impact. We came up with travel being one of them, food being another. You can't really return food, right? All these experiences that you go for. The third is, of course, gadgets, because that essential format is, I mean, sorry to say this, but no apples, or now when apples are floated out to B town big wigs, how exactly are going to they tap onto this, and how exactly the paperwork on that is going to work is going to be key as well. Uh, Vasudha, why don't you come in on this? I know the industry per se has gone through a huge churning, right? You were one of those early ones who said, call it a paid partnership. Why, in the garb of just to review, you're actually, sort of doing a plug for a product. And now to come to tax, how are you seeing this?
See, I think everything has a good and bad side. I just have like two, 3 points. Basically, like the good side is that I'm just talking about beauty influencers. We will not be used as marketing vehicles for free. Otherwise, you take one product, you send it to like 100 influencers. They're all posting at the same time. There's your campaign. You don't need to spend a thing. You're just sending the products. As in spend a thing, meaning like I'm not going to pay my electricity bill with the latest moisturizer, right? So that way, hopefully, influencers will start getting paid. But the flip side is that I feel like there's like a lot of fluidity in the market for smaller brands who would not be discovered if it was not for the freebie that they sent across. Like everyone is happy to accept a freebie from say like a L'Oreal or an Estee Lauder, something worth 5,000 rupees, fine, sure, I'll be happy to pay TDS on it because at least it'll be more sasta than me buying it from the market. But that small, I mean, even though there's this thing, I was reading about it. I think you're supposed to, like, your income is supposed to be about a crore. Only then your profits are supposed to be about a crore. Only then you need to pay this TDS. But it's really very unclear, how it's going to affect the smaller brands. And lastly, like, who is going to declare this? How are you going to track, like you said, okay, till 20,000. So if a lipstick is 1,000 rupees, who is going to track that, okay, this is the 20th lipstick and now you need to start paying taxes? So I don't know, I just have to see, like, we just have to see how it plays out.
Right. So a lot of unanswered questions there is what I'm hearing from Vasudha as
Yeah.
well. But Natasha, just to get an understanding from you on, I spoke about briefly the industries where we see maximum impact over here. You do a variety of things. I'm sure there is chatter within the influencer community as well, that what to do, what not to do now, because the deadline of 1st of July is like right here.
It's like 6 days away. So the thing is, a lot of us like internally have spoken, and it's a little skewed because I don't know policy is going to be properly implemented, how it's going to have adversely effect on what I feel is the small and local brands, right? The indie brands, like literally, like Vasudha said, for beauty, the same goes for fashion, the same goes for a new product in the market. So they don't have the big budgets that these conglomerates do to kind of market their products that they're selling through a paid partnership and a deal. So they get their income or they get their eyeballs for that product through us. We are the means through which people can get to know. So my best friend wants to start doing this art deco kind of like, those resin artwork. She's going to give it to me to be like, give me the best possible way you can get those eyeballs on it, right? And I do it for friendship's sake or communication's sake or from some sort of, it's not always supposed to be taxed, because that it just takes away the joy of promoting that product. I wouldn't say promoting it, but just showcasing what that product has to offer to the followers that you have.
I see. So, lots of questions there. And I know I really want to get a view of Shitnik and Amlan as well. But Sachit, do you want to answer some of those questions over here? And anyways, and if you could draw parallel really, Sachit, and you and I were speaking earlier, you said right now also there is a system. How well it is followed is a different story. But just lay it out in very simple terms for everybody, including our influencer community, to understand what this means. And also start with who pays it to begin with.
Let me tell you, Sonal, this tax has already been there. It's been there since 2010. The problem which the tax department was facing is recording of these transactions. And that's why you have now a TDS provision to kind of record these transactions. The law as it stands today is, if any person, including me, if I get a gift, or let's say Apple decides to give me an iPhone as free of charge, it is taxable in my hands. Section 56 of the Income Tax Act provides for taxation of that. This is not a new tax. What the department has now done is that it is now recording the transaction. As soon as Apple gives me that product, that iPhone in my hand, Apple must do a withholding tax or a TDS. So in simple terms, if the phone value is, let's say, 1 lakh, they have to deposit 10,000 as 10% TDS in the tax with the tax department against my PAN, and this will then get reflected in my my system against my PAN. So this will be now my income of 1 lakh, and 10% will be the TDS on that. It's like any other transaction, let's say a professional fee to a lawyer like me. There is always a 10% TDS on that. Now, even on the benefits or perquisites that you're getting, there is a 10% TDS. So according to me, this is not a new tax. The companies will be giving these freebies or these benefits to the influencer community, will deduct 10% of the value of the product given and give the product to an influencer. Let's say Natasha gets an iPhone instead of me. So she will record the value of the iPhone in her income as the income received, because otherwise this was never getting recorded. Let's say I got an iPhone, I don't record it. Let's say a company gives me an expensive bottle of champagne, I never record it. Now when they hand that over to me, they will have to record it. They will have to do a 10% TDS and deposit with the government, and this will show up in my systems now.
So hold on. If I'm understand this correctly, right? It's like, okay, let's use the same Apple example, right? Or say Samsung folding phones, which they're giving out for everybody at the moment, mood of the season or whatever. And they give this phone to me, right? Earlier, it wasn't getting recorded because I could or could not reflect it in my taxes, because it's at the end of the day a gift, right?
Correct.
In the current laws, a gift worth more than 50,000, if I'm not wrong,
yes,
has to be reported.
More than 50,000 is taxable unless you get it from a relative.
Correct. So at the moment, even before the entire TDS system came in, if you received a gift more than 50,000 rupees from somebody who's not a relative, and again, relative is a word one can play around with, you were supposed to reflect it.
Sonal, there is a set definition of who qualifies as a relative. You really can't play around with that.
You can't. Okay.
You can't play around with that.
Good to know that. Good to know that. So that was anyways to be taxed so far.
Yes.
And why this TDS has been introduced is because government had no way of accounting this. There were a lot of
Correct.
people who were not actually reporting these so-called
Correct.
incomes. And now, because there is TDS, and because Samsung, before giving me that phone, has to create an invoice and pay tax there is a new measure or as a transaction that has emerged from their end, which has to be bounced off against mine in government's P&L. That's very. Have I understood that correct, Sanjit?
Absolutely. In fact, not just these freebies. You had the doctors getting, this is one of the topics of discussion today. Doctors were given these free visits and holidays by pharmaceutical companies. IPL tickets worth, thousands of rupees were given for free. Now all this will probably stop, or it'll get recorded. And I'll have, as recipients, we'll have to pay tax on it, which we were
Right.
anyway supposed to do.
Right. So that, I think, makes it very clear, guys, though, for everybody to understand how this is going to go. But I want to take this a little forward, because it's not that simple from what I've understood so far. And Srinik, come in on this one. Don't companies already have, say, PR budgets which account for these things, and there was anyways tax being paid from their side?
Right. No, agreed. So companies, of course, had PR budgets, but since this was never recorded, especially the smaller gifts, it used to kind of skip under the radar. Coming to the larger question, my perspective over here is very simple. If we zoom out a bit, right, as we speak, all of us have been talking about how will it affect individuals. My way of looking at it is in a slightly macro manner. Taxes are the only way in which a country progresses, right? Whatever side you are in, that's fine. But taxes are, one of the strongest way in which a country will progress. Influencer marketing as an industry is almost 1,000 crore industry, growing almost, there are talks that it might grow almost 40% this year, right? It is a sizable industry. Right.
Srinik, let me pause you for a moment. I think the line at your end is a little bad.
Okay.
While we just reconnect with you, let me go to Amlan. Amlan, give me your thoughts. And you've got vast experience of dealing with gadgets, with phones, which is such a huge market in a country like India. The digital journey India is on, such a crucial part of that as well. And these are all offshoots, even influencers coming in and part of that telecom ecosystem, right? Which is said to be the one which will be most impacted. At this point, companies with Natasha had a good point. She says that smaller brands who were looking for eyeballs, so-called for free, right? That can you just wear it, push it out, and see if I get something without big marketing budgets, are going to suffer, might suffer. Although if it's more than 20,000, remember that. But big companies as well, how do you see the impact unfolding there?
So first of all, I would say that it's a good move in the sense that we are legitimizing a kind of a transaction. So that's a good move in that sense. Any benefit that is being passed to any person, any individual, should be recorded in some form or the other, so that it becomes like a clear or white transaction in some sense. How would it impact? I see any additional impact that goes to any of the both either parties, be it the company or be it the influencer. At the end, this impact gets passed always to the customer. So at the end, no company would try to relinquish its margins. So if suddenly influencer has to pay tax on such gifts, so they will automatically charge higher in the coming period. And when they charge higher, so it will automatically get passed to the end customer. So I see in the long term it getting passed to the end user. So while it is good for the economy that we are getting taxes, but for the end user, which is already under certain kind of inflationary pressure, this will get passed to them eventually. That's what I see.
All right. In such a massive inflationary environment, I'm not sure if this is great news for anybody. Certainly not me, the consumer, at this point. But I think, do we have Srinik back? Okay, we're just taking a moment over there. But let me come back to Vasudha then. Vasudha, now that you've understood what this exactly means, what are the thoughts at the moment on what this could do to the entire influencer community?
I just feel like this is a very utopian law. We are expecting that, companies will disclose, and 20,000 is a large amount. 20,000 is nothing. If you just look at the kind of gifts that we get, I'm just thinking about, like, say, a brand like Dyson, right? 35,000. Their hair dryer is 35,000. So 20,000 is no amount. And like, it's just like, how, like, it's just taxation, right? In this country, people are taking money in cash, and there's ways to work around. So this is very utopian. It sounds lovely on paper, but who's going to keep track of who's sending who gifts? There's nothing stopping a company from, like, just sending me like a few lipsticks. and me just posting about it, who's keeping track? There's this whole like ASCI guidelines in place where you are supposed to declare an ad, where you are supposed to declare gifts. Is anybody doing that? Nobody is doing that. Like lots of people are not doing that in the way that they should be. So I just feel like this is a very utopian law. We'll just have to see like how it's just like, one part is that it is a utopian law. The other part is just that it's just too confusing and too much gitch pitch,
Rightly
Yeah.
said.
Too much gitch pitch is what Sachit will be like, काम ही यही है हमारा. This is the job of a lawyer.
Mamas and chachas.
Unravel this gitch pitch and then tell you.
I'm going to make the head of Estee Lauder my muh bola bhai. Rashi
that's
Bandhai is going to be different this time.
He can make a whole step-by-step, how people map tutorials step-by-step. He has to just make a whole thing step-by-step on how.
I think we've
Well, I don't want to burst the bubble.
That's what
I don't want
Natasha is
to
going
burst.
to do. In the next video, she's going to talk about these things I learned on money control while talking to everybody. Yeah?
I think that's a good
Aditi?
one. That's a good one.
What about you?
I'm into it. I do think that there has been so many CAs have graduated from CA universities and colleges all across the nation, and they need to have something to do, and to bring in a new sort of batch of influencers who are as confused. Like, we called the official term between the three of us was gitch pitch. Okay, so you know how much we understand of this. And I mean, this is also like, this is feeding the economy in a different way. You think we're going to pass on here's a question I have. So wait, this TDS that we're going to pay, isn't the brand going to pay it? Or then we also have to pay it? Like,
let me explain that. So in monetary terms, I'll take the same Apple example again. So this time Aditi gets the iPhone. The phone,
that kind of show.
the phone is worth 1,20,000. I'm going to increase the value. The 10% TDS comes to 12,000 rupees. So Apple, what it will do is it'll give you the phone as it is. It'll deposit 12,000 with the tax department, and it'll take your PAN. They'll deposit the 12,000 against your PAN. In your system, in your income tax portal, it will show as Aditi has received a gift worth 1,20,000. 12,000 is already paid. It'll total up your income. It'll say total income from other sources, etc. Your professional receipts comes to, let's say, 15-20 lakhs. 30% tax on that is 5 lakhs. You already paid 12,000 rupees, so I'm going to give you deduction for that. The rest you now pay. So it's going to get recorded in your income, Aditi. You will still have to pay the balance 30%, balance 18% tax if you if you fall in the highest bracket. So you will also have to dish up some more tax in that when you file your return.
I have one question to you.
Aditi, next time you get a phone, you can't do this. You can do this.
I just be like,
You can be like, what is happening?
You can do this, you throw that, you throw that.
That is what I want to know. So you see, but jokes apart, what's happening here, and technically for everybody to understand, because your PAN card is getting attached to the TDS that the company is paying, you already become part of that account and you have to pay. Now there's no escaping it, right? You can't rig, as they say, tech or in that way. So now my question, having understood that, is, Aditi, what will you do now when the company comes to you and says we are doing this and gives you, say they come and say, okay, this new bag by Gucci is going to Aditi, and Aditi has to like talk about it and stuff. Natasha is already feeling like, why not me? But
I'll give it to
I
Natasha.
still don't get it.
I
don't get it.
I'll pass it to Natasha. I'll call Natasha and say, I got a Gucci bag, here you go.
First, I have to say thank you for considering me for getting a Gucci bag. But I don't know, I feel like there's so much confusion because certain times, like brands like the Gucci Blondie bag, for example, went out to a lot of influencers. Now, the thing is, brands send these products out for sometimes birthdays, anniversaries, but it also is such a gray area because, like, you aren't going to say no to a brand like Gucci, right? But at the same time, they want eyeballs, they want their marketing done through you for free for that brand. So now what do you do? I'm also so confused. What do you do? And I have another question. What
Yeah.
about the intangible assets? What about like, so as beauty influencers, we go for a lot of like hair experientials or like body experientials. What do you do for that? How do you track that? How do you track like staycations or anything travel related? How do you track like sometimes a lot of like travel influencers talk about a product or an airline, like an airline, like how the Airbus 380 for odd reasons. I don't know why I thought of that. But how do you equate that? Like I'm so confused.
Sachit, how do you do that? One thing I know is if you don't want to pay tax on Gucci, use it for some time and before the financial year ends, send it back.
Means I have
Best
like
Because if
idea.
you're not keeping it, yeah, if you're not keeping it, then you get to not pay tax on it. So that's one. I
And you
love
can
That's
ask
these
one.
them to
jugards
return it on
suddenly coming
second
in my
April.
head.
But
But Sachit,
look,
please correct
yeah,
me if
look,
I'm correct me there, please.
no, if you send it back, if you use it for rendering the service and give it back, then it's not a purpose. It's pretty clear. But to the point on how you track it, see, no company now which is giving you this perquisite or a gift is going to take a chance, because if they do not deduct, they become as what we call the assessee in default. They have to dish up the tax and interest and penalty on that. Nobody's going to take a chance now. So if you're dealing with companies, registered companies, or people who have, as I think Vasudha was saying, there is a limit of 1 crore turnover for the company, that is for the payer, not for the recipient. So if you're less than 1 crore turnover or 50 lakhs for business, then the payer is exempt. But otherwise, no payer is going to take a chance of not deducting this tax and reporting it. For them, it's only a 10% tax. They're going to report it. Nobody's going to take a chance and for you. I don't think you may get compensated for the additional taxes. I think those will be up for negotiation. Those are contractual terms you can negotiate with the brand. But I don't see a way out. Honestly, the companies will do a withholding or a TDS on this.
But
No,
Sachit, there's a catch here. There's a catch here, and that is about they're not the only players. A lot of times, barter, which is so popular, really, in the entire influencer community, it happens through agencies,
Correct.
right? And Shrinik, why don't you come in? Like, how does your role in the whole thing work? And can
Sure.
agency to brand get into an arrangement, and influencers can then just stay content creators?
So let's, one of the first things is, given the fact that there is a tax on influencers, it is a legitimate business, right? As per the government now, right? If it is a business can generate certain income, and if a business is generating income, it better pay taxes, right? So that's my first stance. Second point over here is, if we get certain goods or certain gifts from a brand which I'm going to give away to an influencer, the TDS would be deducted on us, right? In this case, say example, Apple gives a gift to White Reverse Media, right? In that case, 10% would be deducted from in terms of the value, which I will pass on, and I will also deduct that money. Essentially, I'm taking from one hand and giving on the other hand. So there is no impact on the agencies. Every time a tax is paid, it is paid by the end consumer, right? In this case, the influencers, right? So that's it. And again, let's go technically. Let me explain technically as well, right? Every time a company gives away gifts, it shows it as official expenditure. That means it deducts from its income. That means it pays lesser tax. Now, on one hand, the company is paying lesser tax because it has deducted expense, right? And on the other hand, the influencers or whoever is the gift recipient is not paying tax for it, right? So there is a double loss which is happening. And hence, this makes a lot of sense, and that's why this is important from a macro lens.
Sorry, I have a question. So, say for instance, if I am being sent by a magazine to write an article to a place which is going to be a free stay, but obviously the magazine is paying me for that article. I'm already paying a 10% TDS on my writing fees. Am I supposed to pay 10% TDS on this stay, which is free? And how does that work?
TDS is tax deducted at source. Source
Yeah.
over here is the company.
Okay.
Recipient. So source is essentially the person who's paying the gift or giving the gift. So I have to deduct tax from the total value which I'm going to give you. That's first. Also, we all are missing a larger picture, which is much bigger than 10%, which is this is considered as your income. If you fall in the largest tax bracket, forget 10% TDS. You are being paid. You have to pay 30% tax, boss, on a free gift. That is a bigger question which needs to be answered. So, if at all, ma'am, you're getting a Gucci bag.
So can I?
I don't get
can I
anything.
just say that? Are you?
मेरे को कोई नहीं भेजता है, किसी को बोलो भेजने के लिए, please.
Vasudha, don't say that. Because of you, all of us are actually paying. Don't say that. I mean, part of me is like, good, pay the tax now.
Yeah, of course. Jokes apart.
No, but Shane, tell me this. Then, are you seriously saying what I'm understanding from you? Is the party over then for influencers? They will now have to be accountable if they want to move into an economy. And like Vasudha said, and rightly so, they work very hard. It's not just about a barter. It's just not about doing a little gig online. If they want to be taken more seriously as an industry, as a content creator, this comes part of the package now. This is what you will have to do as the influencer economy grows from here on. And the party so far, as they say, is now over in a way.
It's like I said, it's a 1,000 crore industry, right?
Yeah.
The industry better pay taxes, right? And again, another point remains: the influencers are using those products or services. So, in case, say, example, if Aditi loves a Gucci bag and goes buy, and essentially buys it, right? So, okay.
नहीं चाहिए
Throw back.
I think what will happen,
I'm going to
Sonal,
tag Gucci in this conversation and let them know how high in demand they are at the moment.
But see, that's
I
the
think
power
what you
of
will see now
influencers.
is, what you will see now, according to me, is influencers negotiating with the brand that look, this outlay, this gift which you are giving me, or this promotion brand or the product that you're giving me is worth, let's say again, 1 lakh. At the highest tax bracket, it also entails a 30% tax. 10 you've already deducted. Please also compensate me for the balance 20. I think those kind of contracts commercially are anyways done. Now the influencer community will also ask for it. I don't see companies saying no if they really want the person to endorse. But I guess the fringe players will go out of the market then.
Absolutely.
I have a question. Do you
go out of the market? Amlan, do you agree with that? Do you see how that's how companies are going to do? Like in my head, the story is what GST did to small traders, right? To small SMEs is what this TDS on influencers is going to do to those micro influencers of sorts. Is that, and how prepared are companies actually for this?
No, I think the economy has already been created. It is not going to collapse at all. There's no thing. I said the impact of this will come to the end consumer. That's the reality, because no influencer is going to put it from their own pocket, right? They will command it from the companies, because this is the most, I would say, in some sense, the most cost-effective medium of marketing. Influencer marketing, why it is so popular for all the brands? Because it's most cost-effective already. So companies are some way benefiting from the influencer ecosystem. So this is automatically, it's a benefit that everybody is accruing, but nobody wants to pass on. So now finally, I think this will make it more accountable to each and every individual who is a part of the process. So I don't see from company standpoint we are going to get into a big change even for the smaller ones. If it demands us to pay them, we will have to get them paid. The cost of this particular marketing medium will increase, which is fine, and it will have to compete with other mediums to be more cost. As of today, it's one of the most cost-effective medium, but then the cost effectiveness will come down a bit. So that might be a question which a company might think we should do this or we should do something else. So that impact can come, but otherwise, once a company has already defined that this is the more beneficial medium, then I don't see any big change happening from companies directly. They will still continue to do this.
I think largely what I'm hearing from all the three players on our panel today, the brands who pay the money, the influencers who receive it now have to pay a little, bleed a little for all those gifts. The PR agencies in the middle and the lawyers who, no tax, tax or no tax, Sachit will always be in vogue. He will always make money. So he's the happiest person on the panel today, right? But having said that, on the whole, I feel there is a very positive sort of outcome of this TDS coming in. And I just want to take a minute to recognize that it's not just on influencers, it's on doctors as well. And that perhaps, calls for another discussion altogether. But that's so required at the moment, where again, these hidden ways of luring doctors to prescribing you drugs, which you might not need, or prescribing you a combination of drug, which in a simpler, non-branded avatar of it's the same chemical, could be much cheaper, but they're prescribing you something that comes from a particular brand, and thus they charge a premium on it because they get some kickbacks for it. So on the whole, this seems to be going in the right direction at least. But on that, I just want to quickly go around and take some closing comments there. Aditi, you've been quiet for very long. Now you can
She's upset.
unleash.
मेरा Gucci bag नहीं आया, मेरा Gucci bag नहीं आया, मेरे को नहीं करना है. जी,
I'm tagging them, I promise.
I think that, I think it's a move in the right direction. I think that, I mean, as you said, you brought up that very potent point about, doctors and their relationship with perks and freebies. And that's the same thing with influencers and their relationship with perks and freebies. Not to the same extent and not to the same damaging extent. But you hear young people talk about the influence that, watching somebody live this life that's clearly not real, has on them mentally, and the steps they take in order to have these or imitate these lives. I think that it's a step in the right direction. I think, and also as an influencer, chalo, main to nahi bolungi hello to that Gucci bag. I'm not paying taxes on it. I just keep it, keep it. Like I'll hang out with my regular linking.
So you will not ask for it. You will not ask for it. Natasha will say, "Give me, I'll return. I'll return.
I'll borrow it. I'll borrow it and then take it back.
Yeah, and we'll give it back before the year ends and
closing of the year. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
hands washed.
We figured this out, Natasha. We figured this out.
Aditi, by the way, you can also take it back on 2nd of April. You can give it back.
See, loophole.
The tips we have discovered on this show, I still don't understand
this
it.
Discussion has gone on a different tangent now. Let's get back. Let's get back a little and let's hear some closing comments. Vasudha, why don't you take it? I hope this discussion has at least provided some clarity on what this is going to be like. So it's all going to be about recalibrating and understanding and sort of reestablishing your relationship with brands as well. That's where I at least see it go.
Yeah.
But one thing that we haven't really spoken about is like how it will benefit the ultimate the consumer, because you can pay taxes, you can do everything, but what the consumer actually wants is for like the influencer to declare whether this is a gift or not, right? So they can, I mean, that clarity, whether it will come because of this law is, I don't know whether that will happen or not. So that's something to think about.
Okay, we lost you there for a minute. I'm going to come back to you, Natasha.
Okay,
so this was a lovely discussion. I'm still confused. I will ask my questions later, privately maybe. But I think, like everyone said, I see merit in it, but at the same time, I feel like if it's not implemented properly, it's like those intangible assets are still like a gray area, at least for me, because I'm looking at it from my day-to-day life, right? How I do things, how I promote them, how I like market as ad or barter or collab or hosted for a restaurant launch, So I'm still kind of trying to figure it out, but I'm hoping this doesn't leave us bleeding. That's all I can say.
Okay, Amlan, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I still believe for capital intensive products, which are very expensive, the companies will go for a give me back kind of a scenario, so that all of us are in comfortable zones and we don't get into difficult negotiations actually. I see more of it going towards that. For the smaller ones, the companies will have no other options, other than to pass on, because to make it a easier process, because once you give and make it a return process, then you have to follow other norms of inventory according to various other provisions of the taxes. So from that angle, I see, yes, this is something I would consider as a positive move, because it clearly channelizes one profession as a very legitimate one. So I believe in that, and it makes it a true profession in that sense. Yeah.
True profession. I actually agree. I agree with everything that you said. Shrinik.
Yes. So I think, like I said before, it has a lot of merit, but it has a lot more ambiguity. One ambiguity which is there, which again is a fundamental ambiguity. The law says the deduction will be made when the aggregate value of the benefit exceeds 20,000 rupees in a financial year. They don't say whether aggregate value of multiple benefits or benefit out of a single brand during multiple transactions or anything else. So that is a very big ambiguity, right? So what if I'm getting 5 headsets worth 5,000 each? Does this qualify under 20,000? I don't know as yet, right? So there are some ambiguities, and we are already in the last week of June. This is starting first week of July. So that is one thing which needs to be addressed more than anything. And I think from a larger narrative, again, while we, of course, everyone, no one likes to pay taxes. While we have been, fretting about 30, the larger focus should be to increase the size of the cake. How do we make influencer marketing more effective now that it is a legitimate business as per government? That should be the focus.
I see. I see. I see. So it's new. I'm going to let Sachit actually answer some of those questions, but I'm going to give you the last word. Vasudha, I believe we have you back. Why don't you finish what you were saying?
The only thing that I wanted to say was that let's look at it from the consumer's perspective, like whether we pay taxes or not, will the consumer have clarity whether the product is gifted or not? Will the influencers mark the product as gifted? Ultimately, we have to think of whether the consumer will have that advantage, and when taxing it is not the solution. I feel like you tax it and you also make sure that the ASTI guidelines are followed, then it has some teeth. Otherwise, okay, we find our ways around everything.
Okay. Okay, Sachit, is there a way around this at all? I like the fact that, the point that Vasudha actually made, like what is in it for the consumers at the end of the day. I think the government, however, is looking at it only from a income point of view. It's only looking at it from revenue point of view over there. And they realized, same thing with crypto, right? What happened? They realized how big it is, and suddenly there had to be a tax introduced to sort of tap in on that economy as well. That's how it happened, Sachit.
Well, I don't think that tax department is looking at really revenue. They are looking at reporting more than revenue in this case, because a lot of these freebies are going untaxed. I don't think their aim was to tax the influencer community per se. It was largely, I believe, driven for the medical industry, but collateral damage, as I would call it, and therefore the influencer community is also involved. One point which Shrinik said, and I think that I can give him clarity on that, the 20,000 limit as it was there is per payer. So if, let's say, a company is paying 20,000 worth benefits to Shrinik, then if that limit crosses, they'll withhold. If, let's say, they are giving 18,000 to him and 18,000 to Aditi, there is no withholding in a year. It is per payer, per recipient it's how it's going to work. Of course, one payer will not know if another payer is making another donation or another freebie is being given. So it could there could be loopholes around it. But I think the intention was to let the small players go away. A lipstick, water bottle, or a can of Coke should not get taxed. I don't think the law is supposed to be that ridiculous, but of course it will throw up some challenges that I can see. Let's say you go and I think somebody mentioned about a lipstick. Let's say a lipstick is used for promotion. It's not going to go back. It's going to get used. And let's say 4 or 5 shades are used. Some of them are pretty expensive, as I know from my wife, and I have to pay for that. The value of 20,000 is going to get crossed. So it's never going to go back. Same for nail paints, stuff like that, the consumables or chocolates for that matter, and food items. And if those are consumed, how do you value them? I think that's going to be a challenge. Valuation will be a stickler here, as I can see.
Right. And same for travel as well and experiences that one indulges in. So this has been a very nice, sort of wholesome discussion. I quite enjoyed this one. However, I must say we haven't touched upon this very fundamental question of, can these be called freebies? There's nothing free. The influencer at the end of the day is paying in some form or the other. Now, on top of that, the tax has come in. The point is, like it or not, it's going to be here to stay. And I'm sure at the end of this, Sachit is going to receive a lot more calls, and all the CAs and lawyers in the country can expect to get very, very busy. But on that note, let me thank all of you for joining us and giving us your valuable time. And good luck, Aditi, with that Gucci bag.
It's in Natasha's
You're
hand. I
on
don't know what
mute.
you're talking about.
You're
It's in Natasha's hand.
Is it finished? Can we
Yes,
go?
thank you so much,
Oh,
guys.
thank you. Thanks
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank
That's
you.
all we can pack up
Thank
in
you.
today's edition. Stay tuned to Money Control for lots more of such very interesting content coming your way. Bye-bye.